First of all, Ali.K Chishti Saab, thank you very much for joining us for the very first time on our podcast. Before we head on into the lined up topics, I would want you to give a small introduction of yourself to our international audience.
So, my name is Ali K Chishti. I've been a field journalist and I've done journalism for over good uh, 35 years because I've been writing since I was nine. Started writing in '96, of course. I came back from England in 2007. I was associated with Daily Times, Military.com, Indian Express, Foreign Policy magazine to different think tanks. I did my PhD in security studies. I've been involved with advising the top think tanks on counterterrorism. I've opened my own think tank as well. I've been involved in business. I've covered mostly Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, and Iran. But of course, uh, this is my specialization. My two books, I've authored two books. One is a Karachi Political Economy and Al Qaeda, and of course, the second book is Intelligence Agencies of Pakistan, which is coming uh, end of this year, early next year. So I've been involved with a lot of things. So I was a journalist who became a academic, and of course, uh, uh, I wear multiple caps.
Oh, again, honored to have you on the show. Let's dive in really quickly. There is a big progress going on in the Middle East. We saw a security pact between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. The main question evolving around this pact is, does it have a nuclear umbrella? So let's start from here. Any details that you give us about this?
So, uh, so Pakistan and Saudi Arabia has recently signed the defense pact, which is of course accelerated. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia had been together, in building up defense. Of course, there's pact or no pact, Pakistan would have saved Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia would have saved Pakistan without a doubt. It's just that we've just formalized the understanding into written paper and an agreement post Qatar attack, where there is a realization, not from just Pakistan, but from Saudi Arabia, that this attack on Qatar would have wider implications. Now, the agreement which Pakistan and the Saudis have signed uh, is, of course, say it's called the Strategic Agreement for Defense of Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, where uh, it is binding on both countries, like NATO, that an attack on one country would be considered an attack on another country. As to your assessment that somehow, your question that somehow it could be used, uh, any strategic weapon or any nuclear umbrella would be given by Pakistan to Saudi Arabia. That is not there. Pakistan is a signatory to NPT. And of course, all these things in a responsible nuclear state. But of course, um, the NATO member countries, after all, uh, has placed, the Americans have placed tactical nuclear weapons with the non-nuclear countries. I could give you an example of Turkey and Belgium, of course, Amsterdam host a tactical nuclear weapon and actually been trained by the Americans to use it. So if Pakistan does actually give out that umbrella, so eh, nobody should be concerned. This question somehow uh, needs to be addressed, and I think it is at Pakistan and Saudi Arabia as well. This is, of course, a defensive agreement. This NATO is an expansionist organization, which we've seen what is happening in Ukraine. But this is, of course, weapons of deterrence, and obviously used as a this pact is, of course, for defense of both Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Yes, yes.
So, how would it look like now, Ali Bhai? Now that we have like a security pact with them, uh, is there gonna be exchanges of jets, exchanges of missiles? Are we gonna are things are gonna be transported from here to there? What is gonna look like? How is it gonna be?
I think Saudi Arabia hosts better defense equipment than Pakistan in terms of technology. Yes, Pakistan does have better jets, and of course, but my assessment is that assessment A is that of course we are talking about full spectrum. Um, what is a full spectrum? That is diplomatic, economic, conventional, which is your military, non-conventional, which is counterterrorism, of course, strategic, which is five. Uh, uh, Five conventional things which we talk about. But yes, there would be a lot of exchange of weapons. There would be a lot of exchange of information. But my understanding is there part one would be capacity building of Saudi defense forces by Pakistan. Do remember that Pakistan's brigade used to be stationed in Saudi Arabia. It's not. So my understanding is in the first phase you'd see a lot of Pakistani troops would be stationed up. Would give you a number of around 15,000 people, but of course that is the government to government relationship. This is all I could give you right now because out of my analysis, not information right now. But there would be troops stationed there, of course. Uh, the Saudi Air Force would be built up. The air defense would be looked audited by Pakistanis. Pakistani ISI would be helping them, the Saudi Directorate for Intelligence, which is their equivalent partner in counterintelligence mechanism. After all, we've seen in Qatar and of course in countries like Iran that the local citizens or the foreign nationals there had spied for Israel. So there will be a lot of counterintelligence audits with the help of ISI. Um, and the upgrade of Air Force, uh, which is essential because what we've seen in Iran war, in Pakistan India war, that Air Force element and the drone element in air wars is essential. Another aspect is how the Pakistanis and the Saudis would be uh, uh, collaborating more on developing their own indigenous weapon industry. I think you should expect that Saudis would be investing more in Pakistan, because we have the capacity in building radars to drones and even anti-drones. Uh, this would, of course, be extended to China because the Chinese do provide over 81% of our defense procurement needs. So, if we be getting fifth generation fighter, which is of course J-35, that would be extended to Saudi Arabia because uh, very recently what we have seen is that the Israelis have used F-35, which is a stealth fighter. So this would be an offensive weapon used as a deterrent. So that sort of technology would I assume would be transferred to Saudi Arabia or extended as an added hand to Saudi Arabia.
So when we talk about capacity building in a bank's sort of a setting, there are conferences and workshops. So when we talk about capacity building in terms of military, what are we exactly talking about?
Capacity building, of course, is extended to human resource management. Of course, how uh, your cadets in military to, of course, your airmen to your naval operations are, given trainings in NATO style or to our own indigenous training, which is probably second to none in the world. So just to give you an example, therefore we have actually for the first time used something called the multi-domain or the electronic war element in this recent war with India. So with the use of AI, yeah. So that would be extended to Saudi Arabian Air Force in terms of rockets and another weaponry. I think missile technology. Uh, we've been making a rocket force in Pakistan, which is second to none as an added deterrence. I think that sort of exchange would be there with Saudi Arabia. Third element is, of course, in uh, the aerospace and surveillance, which is signals intelligence. I think that there needs to be a lot of coordination between Pakistan, uh, Saudi Arabia, and China because they have the Yedu satellite systems. Do remember that Pakistan Air Force actually owns two separate indigenous satellites too, which the Pakistan Air Force operates independently. from any other country. So we have the technology. Apart from that, the capacity building would include air defense mechanisms. My understanding is there would be audit of all defenses of Saudi forces, and of course, then how our officers would be training the Saudis, which are equally capable, I'm sure, in dealing with that. There'll be Pakistani um, professionals or military personnel, Air Force personnel, Navy personnel would be there, uh, not just safeguarding them, but the whole idea of this partnership is to build their capacity so they would be at par with Pakistan Air Force or any defense industry in the world.
You also mentioned the J-35 being maybe deputed in that region. What does Saudi have under their trunk? What jets do they have, and are we gonna get our hands on them?
I don't think so. The Saudi Air Force, I'm not a weapons expert at all, but my understanding is they run the American weapons primarily, with of course with some British Eurofighters as well. They have Mirage, some old Mirages as well. I think I'm not too sure about the Mirage part, but of course, so I don't think we they have anything which we want in
Mm.
terms of military hardware. I think we are a generational apart from that. We have actually shown on that. But any weapon at which we have is at disposal of Saudi Arabia, and vice versa. I think there'll be no doubt about it. So
I don't know.
in
I
terms
read
of
somewhere they had F-35. Is that true? No, no.
no, they don't.
Okay.
They don't operate.
Mm.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So you were saying.
Yeah. I think obviously this is not a deal which needs to be disclosed openly. There are a lot of hidden elements to it. Of course, this is G2G and state secrets, which ought to remain secret. But there is, of course, the understanding is there. It is written now, and which is to be celebrated because, and this is, of course, my assessment is not a uh, bilateral treaty or bilateral defense pact. This would be extended to other regional countries.
Mm.
Do remember it was Iran today at the United Nations. The Iranian president has not only just welcomed this, but actually my understanding is the National Security Advisor did met MBS with Khalid bin Salman too, which is defense minister, and they discussed their willingness to be part of the pact. So there's a lot of regional players in the Middle East who want to be part of this. My understanding is you would see countries like Bahrain would be joining soon, maybe Kuwait, and some other regional partners would be willing to do it. Would Iran be part of it? I think that's Iran do need to give a lot of confidence building measures because of what is happening in Yemen uh, and all. But the Saudis and Iranis, I think, has come to an understanding on Yemen as well. So it's see a lot of things de-escalating and a lot of regional changes in this region, which we see changing.
You are talking about the neighbors. The next question was, what impact would this have? What implications would they have in the Arab world? You had a word about that. Iran in our neighborhood, immediate neighborhood, Iran, Afghanistan, China, and then India. How would this be reshaping this entire region?
So a defense pact between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia is seen uh, as some sort of a good defense pact, which actually safeguard not just Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, but has wider regional implications. I think the Middle Eastern countries has welcomed it. They don't see it as a threat. Um, of course, there are only two countries, which is Israel and India, uh, which has a which might have seen this as or not taken it well. We've seen statement from India. We've seen a statement from Israel where they're recalibrating their defense network because of this. The Americans, of course, a lot of people there is an American element to it. Of course, the American element to it is that since the Americans were the primary defense partner or defense deterrence force or uh, to the Middle East, especially with Saudi Arabia and Qatar. This is also seen as a diversification away from the American defense, uh, which might actually raise some eyebrows. But since it's Pakistan, who has a good relationship with America, uh, with China, I think that is why the Americans would not say a lot on this, because Pakistan and America does have an excellent relationship and strategic understanding on this too. The Americans do understand that that the Middle East, especially Qatar, was embarrassed because of this attack from Israel. Uh, my understanding is that they're embarrassed and they do understand this pact. And would that be an opening to China in that region? That remains to be seen. But of course, Pakistan understands how to manage these situations, and remains an ideal partner for that region. Yes,
There are
yes.
some people saying that this cannot be possible, that the US did not know about all this. What is your opinion about this?
What is all this? Can you explain,
The
please?
pact between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. Some people say that this happened with the permission of the United States of America. They didn't want to communicate with Israel directly. They wanted to put a leash on Israel, so they just let this slide. Didn't say anything. What do you have to say about this?
So I don't know if anybody was said this here, but I think there was I think there's been fingers pointed at the Americans as to the attack on Qatar, that the Americans knew about it. If you can go to your primary source, so the Americans actually did accept that they were given last moment uh, warning by the Israelis as to do it. But of course, to your wider question, as to people pointing out the Americans knew about the attack on Qatar, yes, that is because I think uh, that is the reason, countries in the Middle East have stopped, or seen American as not a reliable defense partner. Do remember that outsourcing your defense means outsourcing of your sovereignty. So when you actually outsource your defense, you are actually, even to Pakistan. That is why Pakistan is there as a training partner capacity. Defense of Saudi Arabia defense, or Qatari defense, or any other country's defense, if Pakistan partners with them, they would not be outsourcing the defense to Pakistan, but Pakistan would be making them at par to their forces, will partner with them, right? And so will make them, uh, how do I put it, so it will make them at par with any other forces in the world. With regards to your
Ali
question
bhai,
on
I
Saudi
was
Arabia and
actually,
Pakistan,
yeah, yeah, I was talking about the pact between Saudi Arabia and
on the
Pakistan.
relationship to
Yeah, yeah,
Pakistan,
yeah.
on the relationship with Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, this pact, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are partners. Pakistan and Americans are strategic partners. So are the Saudis. We fought a war against the Russians together. All these three countries, very closely, and won it. So, uh,
Mm,
would we need a permission from America? I don't think so.
mm,
Would have told Americans before going with it, of course,
mm,
since they are our strategic partners of both the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Yes, definitely we would have told them,
mm. Okay, wow.
informed them.
Okay, Ali bhai, you've got great knowledge on Afghanistan. Tell us why suddenly President Trump wants Bagram Air Base back. What's the history of Bagram? And why is it important for, once again, for the United States of America? He's saying that they want to look over China's atomic program. He's saying everything so blatantly, cards on the table. Does it work like that? Is that really what he wants it for?
So Bagram was, of course, came into being, I think, pre-Soviet times, or pro-Soviet, as a base. The Americans made a base there just at south side of Kabul, about 200 kilometers away from it. Uh, it's very strategic. So the Americans uh, had wanted this from 6 months. It's only recent uh, times that the Trump has actually has asked, or demanded base from them. One of it demands is, of course, because the Americans have been giving 40 to 45 million dollars a month in terms of aid. So somehow, like 250 to 300 million dollars in cash is given by the American government to the Afghan Taliban government, of course. Around same amount has been given by Japan and all these countries, the US allies to Afghanistan, uh, from Qatar to everything. So something like 400 to 500 million dollar cash lands at Kabul. This is because that's how their government is run, because it's a cash-strapped country. My understanding is that the Afghan Taliban has not paid the salary of the Afghan army for last 2 months. Yet we have seen some of the civilian side of or the civil servants have not been paid for 4 months. We have seen this rights in Afghanistan. So with this background, my understanding is the Americans' uh, demand for this base in Afghanistan is nothing but uh, is nothing but how do we say, a leverage, which is purely in American terms, the leverage to get more gains inside Afghanistan. So that's to counter terrorism. Of course, there is the reemergence of Al Qaeda there, to all of these threats which is building up in Afghanistan and with Pakistan. Too, if you see, most of the attacks are being launched from Afghanistan into Pakistan, because the GDP is there with its 5 to 6,000. So do see this demand is not a very uh, serious demand, but of course there is demand. This is of course been demanded by the President of the United States. You have to take it seriously. So I think the Taliban's would be in sort of a labyrinth where, or a cul-de-sac, in a policy cul-de-sac, because if they say no, the aid stops, and of course Afghanistan regime collapses, because there would be no money coming into Afghanistan. If they do give it to, they destroy the legitimacy as a power, and it would not be seen as some of the neighbors, because Trump has said that it be used. It's some kilometers away from the Chinese nuclear site, so that statement doesn't help. That today, my information tells me that Mullah Yaqub, which is son of Mullah Omar, has been called to Beijing. So see how it happens, but I don't think this would happen.
Okay, so how would this end? Because Trump was like pretty loud saying that bad things will happen if they won't hand up. So how do you think this episode ending?
I think this will be prolonged. I think so. Yeah, the ending part is, of course, how the Americans would stop aid. This is how uh, their real objectives are.